Alright, boys. Hello, hello, hello. Today we're going to be analyzing another video. This one is Reburn, the cinematic from Honkai Impact 3rd. This one is the very first animated short for the game. And I'm interested to see what they do with it in terms of, you know, what the visual difference is in terms of style and how they've handled their growth throughout the years. Also, something that I want to point out immediately is that there's another studio's logo right here, Dancing CG Studio. I don't know if they're still called that. This video is, what, 5 years old? 6 years old. So, I don't know if that studio is still called Dancing CG, but just pointing that out because a lot of people have talked about how Hoyoverse has their own animation studio, and while that's true, they still collaborate with a lot of other animation studios, and whether that's in Japan or anywhere else, there are plenty of examples on that, and I will probably make a video about, actually, you know what? Give me a second, I'll pull it up. So, Honkai Impact Cooking with Valkyries is a series that debuted in 2020, I believe, and this is actually directed by a Japanese animation director, Naoko Takeichi. Naoko Takeichi. Like, that's not a Chinese name. So for those of you who were like thinking that maybe Hoyoverse wouldn't want to collab with Japanese studios because of China being strict, Hoyoverse isn't China, okay? They are their own company and they are global. So on top of that, Chinese animation studios and Japanese animation studios collab a lot more than you think. Trust me. Trust me. There's a lot. There's a lot. It's not just Hoyoverse doing it. I wish I knew every single Chinese studio by name, but a lot of their names are in Chinese. So, you know, I can't really pronounce those, and therefore I can't even read it. I don't remember what their names are because of that. But I'm pretty sure if you just Google like Chinese and Japanese animation studios working together, you will find a lot of results on that. I'm not gonna be your only source for that information. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out because a lot of people seem to be a little bit confused whenever I pointed out certain animation styles that I recognize, or just like asking generally if something is made by, you know, partnership with another studio. People are like, no, Hoyoverse has their own animation studio. They do, yes, but they work with others too. Just wanted to point that out. Anyway, we're gonna watch this in its entirety before I actually make any comments on it. Hopefully it's not bad. A lot of people have said that there's been a lot of growth, so I would expect the first one to be not that good. So we'll see. All right, let's get to it. I haven't even subscribed to the channel. I'll do that now. Holy shit. Already I can see it. Okay. It already has English captions, I guess. Or not.
终于来了吗？
Okay. All right.
气，展开。
Okay. That was written in German. Okay. Alright, so that's just me watching the video, but let's actually analyze the thing now. I just dropped my keyboard. That's awesome. I love when that happens. Let's actually analyze the thing now. First thing that I want to go over is like, that didn't do a very good job of making me feel hype, so I can definitely see where Hoyoverse or Hoyo anime has improved a lot. You know, I think they've definitely upped the bar by a lot since this animation, for sure. The only part of this that actually got me hyped was the climax of it, which is good, but everything else, I can definitely feel where the struggles were, and we're gonna sort of pick it apart and figure out why that is. I would definitely narrow it down to this is an example of showing and not, or sorry, this is an example of telling and not showing rather than showing and not telling. And even though they're not saying a whole lot, it's not like someone's constantly reacting to this in the video and being like, oh, she has a transformation happening. It feels like someone is doing that because it's focusing on it for so long. But anyway, I'll get into it, and we're gonna do a lot of critique here because there are a lot of things here that are poorly done. And I think this is still gonna serve as a good reference point for anyone who is getting into animation or has a passion for animation. Knowing what not to do and what to do as well is just good, in my opinion. Anyway, let's just unpause. We're gonna go over this shot by shot. This one, honestly, a pretty good establishing shot. There's way too much post-processing here with the lens flares. I think they should have dialed it down just a little bit there, and maybe instead of having a clear blue sky, make a little bit of orange or something. Actually, no, it's like midday, so I don't know if that's important to this aspect of the story. They could have made it more of a sunset just to sort of break composition a little bit more, because all these buildings have cool colors, right? The only building that has warm colors is this yellow one over here with the green windows. This has a warm sign, but that's not enough. Like, the rest of this is white, blue. There's not enough, I guess, break in composition here. Also, there is no depth of field. There is no depth of field. Like, there is depth in the shot itself, but the camera doesn't seem to focus on anything. It's just a perpetual, like, open field focus lens. It doesn't actually focus on anything. It just shows you all the details everywhere, no matter how far away it is. So that is genuinely just not good for visual composition. It clutters everything, and it makes it hard to focus on what matters. Also, this shot, I mean, I see cars and stuff like out in the street, but is this place evacuated? Is it a test site? I can't really tell because there are no people. Nothing seems to be alive here. It feels very much like a nuke town, basically. Now, this, I would assume that all of this is done in the game engine. It just feels like I've played Honkai Impact 3rd before, up to like, I got to like level 16 or something. It was really not that long. But I feel like these are literally just game assets, like assets that they pulled from the game and used for this animation, which is not a problem. But I think since it's a mobile game, you can really feel the visual struggle of that. There's just so much information clutter. This is a 2D shot. That's not 3D. That is entirely 2D with a little bit of like a blinking light animation on it and a lens distortion that sort of punches in a little bit over time. That is not 3D, I can guarantee you that. This is also probably a completely... Okay, I did not mean to full screen. I was trying to pause really quickly. This is also probably a little video that says no signal, like a little video animation that says no signal, that they just motion tracked onto this object, because not gonna lie, it looks like the screen should be facing the other way, just in my opinion. I don't know if that's the case. I don't know how these TVs are supposed to look, if they exist in real life or if they're just in the universe of the game. I don't know, but it looks like this is meant to be facing the other way. This is also a pretty good shot. Like, this is quite good. Although the lighting, I don't know. The lighting quality is definitely different here. I think there's just more post-processing here than there is on the other, or not here, but more post-processing here than there is over here. That's just my opinion. There's like these flares and stuff look good here, right? But there's a little bit of an overuse of it as well, so I can kind of tell they probably use something that has a certain brightness threshold, because there are certain bits of this, like on the top of the railings here, where some of it doesn't have a flare at all, and then some of it actually does. So, yeah. A little bit of post-processing errors that I see here. This is just well done. I don't really have a complaint about this. Also, these minor details in the background, I mean, I know a lot of these textures just kind of repeat. I don't know if this exists in the game, but it is a very nice little detail just to have like actual established brand names in here. Stuff like that, you know, like everything is actually lettered properly, and it has typography, it has little characters on it. That looks like a Coca-Cola. Yeah. Is this an Easter egg for a character, top left? I feel like that's an Easter egg for like Himiko or something. I don't know who that is. It's just a red-haired character, and I assume it's Himiko. Every time I see a red-haired character in a Honkai Impact game, I assume Himiko, because that's the only character I know. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry. Anyway. Now this is where things start to get interesting. The entire, like, the presence of this robot shakes the facility and sort of cuts off power, which honestly, I don't know how this robot would have gotten there without shaking the ground anyway. It had cloaking, but how did it get there? Like, has it just been sitting there, or what? Did it teleport in? It looks like it was cloaked and just sitting there. So, I mean, what's going on? Is it just shaking the ground so hard that the power cut out, or is it like an EMP? I have no idea. This effect is also pretty well done, I will say that much. It's not too hard to get like a sort of a depth map or a sort of like caustics display going on that makes things feel like they're sort of frozen, like it just visually. That's sort of the visual style that they went for here with the cloaking technology. Which honestly, I don't mind. I think they did a really good job on this. It looks pretty pristine right here, not gonna lie. Like, this shot, very good. I don't have any complaints. This one is too slow, in my opinion. Because it doesn't feel like there's any urgency, and I just paused on her crotch. That's great. This is most replayed. I wonder why. I wonder why. We'll actually talk about that crotch shot as well, because I feel like it wasn't necessary, but this is kind of like, it's kind of proof in the pudding of like what gacha games are. They're very much fan service, so I guess, you know, having Kiana jump into the air like this and you get that shot, And then you also get this one immediately following it up. I think this is kind of just to get Coomers to be like, oh, girl parts, nice. That's just what I'm feeling. I don't know. Now, okay, another thing that I want to talk about here is this shot may not be practical because it just, like, does it establish what's happening? Yes, it absolutely does. Maybe it's practical in that way. But in terms of, like, whether this needed to happen, like, it literally, the slowest part of that scene is where her crotch is in full focus. So, like, was it necessary? No. We could have actually seen a sort of pulled back shot from like this perspective where she jumps above the hand, or I don't know, she could have jumped out of the like to the side of the hand rather than above it. There's a lot of different things that could have been done about it, and I think the choreography in this definitely does struggle a little bit. This effect, definitely rough. This is very rough. This is something that we would use in storyboarding with modern animation. Like, this is, and you can't say that this is just, oh, it was 6 years ago, so, you know, animation wasn't as good. Animation was gorgeous 6 years ago. This is just a product of the studio being young. That's all. That's all there is to it. I don't hate them for it. I feel like I have to say that because I feel like there's people that just lack a bit of brain cells and they feel like I'm somehow a hater just because I'm criticizing a lot. I'm not. I like to see these things, but I also critique it so that people know what to look for. And for anyone who may be interested in this, likely they're at least interested in animation to some degree that is more than just watching anime, right? So I'm pretty sure some of these people that are watching these videos might actually be trying to learn animation. So this is hopefully helping them along as well. But yeah, I feel like that shot was unnecessary, including the fact that, like, once we pan out, her pose actually changes here, which is interesting. Her arms are actually tucked in when she initially jumps into the air. You can see right here, her arms are like close to her body. And then in the next shot, her arms are out. So I'm not sure exactly, not sure what happened between shots or why they did that. Not gonna lie. Oh wait, actually no, those aren't her arms. Those are not her arms. That's her hair. I'm stupid. Never mind. This is actually a good establishing shot though. Her landing here, even though it's focused on her butt. This is actually just a good landing shot. This is a great pose. Like, this is a great line of action. We get to again, we sort of see I guess an iteration of the character's action or recovery basically being pointed toward their target, right? You can see her, like, the very sharpest point of her line of action is like this arrow that goes up, like, that comes down like this. And at the bottom you have the robot's hand reaching toward the screen, and there's that little cascade of image information that, like, leads back up to the robot's face. So very cool. I think they could have reworked this just a little bit, maybe scoot her off to the left a little bit more, have her pointing toward the robot that way, and the arm sort of leads up to the robot's face in a much clearer sense. Because here, you can't see what's actually reaching towards her, and if they were to arrange it in a different way, they could make it so that every single shot in this animation is a wallpaper, basically. Is that always going to be the goal with every single animation studio? No, but that is what became of Honkai Impact's animation, like animated shorts. It's like almost every single shot could be a screenshot worthy, or it could be a wallpaper, like that sort of stuff. This, not so much. Now, this right here was really cool. The 3D effect that they're using here, I love it. I think it's great. There's also a Honkai Impact 3rd logo on the Coca-Cola can, which I think is a pretty cool little touch. You'll probably notice it once it's on screen again. Look at that. right above like the ingredients and all that stuff on the back of it, you can see the Honkai Impact 3rd logo right there. It's just a nice little touch. There's also even like, wait, what does that say? Oh my god. Tech otakus save the world. That's insane. That yeah, they know their demographic. Like, they know their demographic. Anyway, this 3D effect, honestly, I think that the particles here may have been 2D, and the liquid itself, liquid simulations are always difficult to do, and I think having a slow-mo shot of this is the most beneficial, because if it was in real time, it would look much worse, honestly. But slow motion lets you get away with some really janky liquid physics, and you can basically just use like a noise deformer on a little like plastic simulation, and it starts to look like liquid as long as you use the right shaders. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like how she like pulls the liquid back into the can. I don't know how she's drinking it, considering it would have a hard time actually exiting the can at that point, but that's neither here nor there. I do like the detail of her larynx going up and down as she's swallowing, although I don't think the shadow is really, I don't think it needs to be that pronounced there. I think another way that they could have done this is to remove the darkest shadow on her throat and just like lift the already existing shade that's there, just lift that a little bit in correspondence with her swallowing, because I don't think that this is I don't know, it's a little bit uncanny looking at it. Okay, that was really cool though. This is another example of 2D and 3D blending. Wow, you can literally see the two. Oh my god, you can see the line where the 2D happens here. Good lord, their compositing has gotten much better these days. But anyway, a lot of visual noise here and a lot of clutter. I think it's just not doing a good job of giving any sort of clear indication of what's happening. Because like you see her feet in the air, you see the robot's hand already down, but like what exactly happened here, right? If I were to just look at this image without any context from before, that's basically what my critiques are. Look at the image without any context from before and see if you can figure out what's happening. Here, to me, sorry, my eyes are like leaking, so I keep like wiping my eyes if you notice. Here, I don't see good use of color. I don't see good use of composition, really. This little, there's like this, there's this orange piece of tin, not orange, but more reddish piece of tin that's like rusted, basically, off to the right side of the screen. It's actually pulling my attention that way, more so than anywhere else, at least in this frame. Like if I go back, let's see, where do my eyes go? Okay, my eyes are center. My eyes are center here. And maybe it's because of that can. Maybe it's because of that red can. Because it breaks out of all of these cool colors and it brings your eyes directly to the robot's face, and that's where your eyes stay. Or at least that's where mine stay. So I think this is pretty okay. They did a good enough job to keep the eyes in the right areas. But man, the colors are not doing it justice, and the post-processing has completely disappeared for this shot. So then we have the 2D effects. I have no complaint about that. They're great. This right here is 2D drawn over 3D. You can tell because the rest of this is identical to the 3D landscape we saw earlier, and there's no way a 2D artist would go through the hassle of actually drawing that when they could just take a still frame of this shot in this perspective and then just paint over the parts that they need to put in focus, like the train, for example. So, and further proof of it being 2D is that there are impact frames, right? Light shines through here, then boom, impact frame. That's digital, by the way. And it just, it's great. Those are great impact frames. I have no complaints about that. We have more VFX work right here. the glass flying out of the train. We have the smoke coming through. That actually looks like it might be 3D. That might be like a 3D smoke simulation. That might not be 2D. Yeah, I think that's 3D as well. It's actually captured in the depth of the 3D objects here, and not in the way that 2D would. This is definitely, that looks like a 3D cloud. This is 2D. Now this is where pacing starts to become a problem. Because the rest of it is like not so much, but this is definitely where pacing becomes a problem. We're lingering on this shot for quite a while of her just running. Like, for example, now there's clearly no sense of urgency here because she's literally taunting back at the robot, right? But why is it just sitting there watching her run away? I'm pretty sure, like, I mean, I don't know. It's a pretty big robot. She won't be able to get away just by running at this pace, but it is a little bit odd to me if this person, or is this a person piloting it? I don't know, probably, considering the ending of it. She seems to be very sad that the robot is destroyed. And she even kisses it, if I remember correctly. So, I'm pretty sure there's probably someone in there that she has to kill. I don't know. But, we have 3 shots already that linger on this one running sequence. Now this right here, I feel like this could be cut out. This should stay. So this shot right here, honestly, cut it out. It's really not necessary. Also, not gonna lie, when she starts running faster here, I thought she just jumped up through the roof, honestly. It didn't look like she started running faster. Yeah, she's composited into this separately from the rest. Probably because they didn't want to mask around her for every single frame of her running in order to give her this extra glowy effect. So they probably rendered her completely separately from the motion of the world itself. And you can kind of tell because once she gets close to this pillar up here, she starts to actually, like her model is a little bit in front of it. So I can tell that like the glow effect isn't done in 3D space, and she's a little bit, I don't know, she feels out of place there. She doesn't feel like she's being affected by any of the shadows being cast here. Like as she runs, oh, this is the problem. Yeah, this is the problem. This is why I can tell, because once she's behind the pillar, there's no shadow being cast on her at all. But yeah. And then she disappears for this frame because they were, you know, obviously smart enough to just clear her out from there. But we have the bottom of her feet over here as she's running faster. To me, when I first watched this, and the second time even when I was watching it just a few moments ago, I was like, did she just jump into the air or what? No, she didn't jump into the air. Anyway, yeah, I feel like this shot can be done away with. This one can be done away with as well. This one can also be done away with, and this one. This is what we need. So from her going and then running, then we should get this immediately. That would help pacing so much. Would it make the animation shorter if we actually fix the pacing of this? Yes. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, in my opinion. Because this is great. This is a great running sequence. I think it puts into perspective the urgency of this, right? It just cuts to the chase. She gets a little taunt in, and then we get straight into it. The robot is bolting after her. I think that would be great for pacing. And instead of her realizing that it takes a little bit, right? It takes a little bit. Let's go through this. So we have this. I think this transition, as it goes from, and you can tell where it like goes from a 3D asset to a 2D asset. This pillar is a 2D asset. That is not 3D. It has reflections on it. They actually put some work into painting that. and it's probably just layered over the 3D, honestly. But anyway, here, I think this transition should actually have just skipped straight to this right here. I think as the pillar passed by, we immediately go right here to her having the realization and the sound of the robot jumping, and then we see this shot where the robot probably shouldn't be sort of lingering in the air for too long. I think this shot should probably like maybe around right here would have been fine, because we have the sound of the robot jumping, so we know it's already in the air, and if it starts from this point, it's like, okay, it still has some breathing time for you to, you know, realize what the shot is, and everything kind of works out. Now this is a beautiful shot. I think this is where a very experienced animation director actually came in and did this shot, because usually in animation you'll have different directors or different animators basically doing the keyframes and all the really important moments, right? Everything else is sort of like the filler content that's supposed to be low budget. You're not really supposed to spend too much time on the rest of it because you have this climactic bit, right? Every sequence has this climax to it. So usually there's a different animator that is directing a certain shot, and that's why you get different consistencies in the quality, basically. But here, the environment has changed. I don't know when we got here, but we have been running for a good long while now, so I would assume maybe it's just we've gotten closer to the distance. But I don't remember seeing these buildings before, honestly. Anyway, the 2D VFX here, honestly, knocked it out of the park. They're great. There's actually two different layers of it working together, so we have this initial explosion that's like kind of noisy and like gravelly almost, and then we have this second layer that's supposed to emulate sort of like a shockwave that blows over the camera, and it leads us into the next shot. We see some broken rubble, and we see her flying into the air, which honestly, pretty well done. And again, I actually see wow, I just had a realization. I actually see some remnants of Studio Bones like texture style for broken textures, which either Studio Bones had, like, someone from Studio Bones worked on this, or I don't know. I see it here. Studio Bones has this style of basically just 2D polygon shape language in their rocky textures. And I'm also seeing a very similar skybox here to that of like a My Hero Academia. So just worth noting, I think there's probably some animation directors from Studio Bones that have either moved over to Hoyo Anime, or they work with another studio, because they do transfer between studios pretty frequently. Animators do. They probably have worked with whatever studio was outsourced for this. Or they could just be a part-time employee at Hoyo Anime. You never know. You never know. They could be seasonal, they could be part-time, you never know. This is honestly where the direction has gotten much better. I spent a lot of time talking about like stuff that kind of doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, but we can actually talk about this shot right here. It does a great job of giving impact. It does everything that it needs to do. Also, this shot right here, beautiful. It doesn't waste much time at all. This interrupts it, which honestly is pretty okay, but I think it lingers on this for a little too long. Because in an actual fight sequence, I feel like this would happen a lot faster, but they're trying to show it slower for the sake of the viewers understanding what's going on. And if you have to show things slower for the viewers to understand, that is a product of, sadly, you not knowing what you're doing. I think this is great. Was she wearing a jacket? Wait, what? Yeah, she was wearing a jacket. Why did it turn completely black? What? What happened there? Anyway. This right here, I have gripes with this. I genuinely do. Because we see this train cart being hurled at her from a massive robot, and it takes this long for it to not only arrive, but it's traveling apparently so slow that she can casually kind of just jog through it. She has the pose that she's sprinting through it, but she gets to jog through it and spin around on one of the like stabilization poles and then swing out. So I do have gripes with this. I feel like the transformation scene is a little too long. I feel like it has the feeling of the early adaptations of manga back in the day, where anime sequences would try to linger on this for as long as it takes the person to read that panel, you know, in the manga. Where it's like maybe they have some words that they're saying and there's a transformation happening. So like the old school anime would sometimes you know, linger on it for the entirety of the duration of like the character's dialogue, and that's what this feels like. It really does feel like it's taking a little too long. I do like the transformation. Okay. Like, was that really necessary? Was it necessary for us to see every single detail of her crotch there? Like, was it really necessary to include all of this? Was it? Like, I'm just wondering. I'm just wondering, was it necessary for it to show the rear angle? And was it necessary for it to zoom in this close? I feel like it's showing a lot more of body parts than it is showing the actual transformation. Which again is a byproduct of what the game is going for in terms of demographic, but like genuinely, you could show this transformation a lot faster, and in my opinion, a lot better if you pulled the camera out a little bit and just had it spin around her as it's, you know, happening. And then as she jumps out of the train cart, that's when you get the big reveal of what the transformation was actually achieving. I think that would be great, but we already get that reveal before we even get there. And this is what I mean, okay? So she gets time to land, skid across, begin sprinting, and this just doesn't feel urgently fast at all. Compared to like what the speed was when this train cart was chucked at her, it's not really losing momentum yet, because how close she was to the initial throw. So this thing should be going, she and the train cart should be like about 500 feet away by now. Not gonna lie. And like this, I mean, even the background just feels like it isn't moving here. It feels like nothing is actually, like there's no, there is a cause, but there is no effect, basically. Like there's nothing saying we are moving fast right now. There's no speed lines, there's no, maybe like a little bit of slow-mo, like there was a slow-mo effect from before where the color palette becomes more purple, so like they could have used that for this, but they didn't, so it's hard to tell if this is meant to be slow-mo. I don't think it is, therefore it just feels lacking in speed and power. And we have like the smoke effects from her jumping out, so I mean, there's, oh my god, my eyes keep leaking, bro, that's insane. Yeah, I don't know. It just feels a little silly. Feels a little silly, that sequence. And this is another aspect of things are taking a little too long. Because in any combat scenario, this is where the choreography struggles, this is where the pacing struggles, this is where timing struggles. Because in any case where you are a massive target and a little target is running along the end of your blade trying to get down to you, either you drop the blade or you swing it off. I don't know, there's so many things you could do to just like circumvent this issue, or just force her to have to do something other than running directly at you. I know this is a cool shot, but I feel like this is a very amateur concept of what a fight should be. This feels like something that an amateur artist would do in their first like manga action sequence, basically. It just doesn't feel believable at all. And I guess it's not really the goal of anime to be believable. It's not really the goal of Honkai Impact 3rd to be believable. It's just meant to be a fun fantasy kind of thing, right? But there's so many layers and so many layers of depth to the story from what this was. So they've definitely, like, you know, improved a lot from storytelling to their animations in general, but I just definitely the choreography on this is nowhere near on par with other projects that we had 6 years ago. I'm gonna be honest. Like, this is just silly. If the robot is fast enough to track her with its face, I'm pretty sure it's fast enough to just not gonna lie. Like, look at that. Look at, like, could have done that earlier. Or could have just wobbled the blade a little bit. Now, if you have seen my previous video, you likely hear my neighbor with the mosque singing in the background. Just ignore it. Honestly, don't be fucking disrespectful about it. That is religious singing. Anyway, we're just gonna proceed here. But you can actually, okay, there's some good things here. Okay, I will say there are some good things here. So we're gonna go over it. This right here. I'm not exactly sure what the feathers are about. If there's a gameplay reason for that, then I guess it works. In my opinion, it doesn't really work all that well. It works as a transition, but in terms of like why they're there, there's no indication of feathers before this, so it feels a little bit silly. And it doesn't feel like a storytelling element either, but maybe it is. I don't know. Unless maybe she's like a battle angel and her feathers are supposed to be like a semblance for her wings. I don't know. Again, I don't know much about Honkai's lore, so if anyone can correct me on that, please do. Let me know. This shot is good. This is good. I actually felt a little bit of chills, honestly. Like, just from the way that this is done, the pacing, it feels grandiose. It's well done. I like it. This does take a little bit long to actually reach its target, but I don't think it really hurts anything to have it go this long. This happens plenty of times in anime. It's just how anime works, right? It's not like overly drawn out. It's just a little bit teetering on that. Another thing that I do want to point out is that you can actually see where the 2D, you can see where the 2D stops and the 3D begins, and I'll explain what that means in a second. But here we have this 2D skybox that we're sort of panning across, and then right here, as the beams get close enough to the camera, where the glow effect is like blowing out the rest of the background. Then you can see the immediate, like the next frame, 3D right there. that is 3D. There's no post-processing. There's no blur. I feel like there should have been blur here because we have this flare that's right there in the camera, like right in our face. I feel like that probably should have, like, the background should have been blurred for a little bit up until like this point, right? Because then we would sort of come out of the blur into focus on its target, right? I think that would be a great touch, but it wasn't done. This right here, very well done. It's 2D effects on top of a 3D model. This is done quite a lot of times, especially with Hoyoverse animations. I love that they do it. The mix of CG and 2D. Not just Hoyoverse does this though, like almost every single animation studio of modern day does this, which, you know, it's well done. Whenever it's done, it's well done. This is also really cool, really interesting. Not gonna lie, this is like, the explosions here are reminiscent of like AI art, but this was 6 years ago. AI art did not exist. This was just a very good animator's work. The only reason I say it feels kind of like AI is just because of how everything feels. It feels like it may have been drawn by 2 different artists. And what I mean is, like, the flame effects were done by a different artist, while the smoke effects were either done in 3D or done by a separate artist. That's what it feels like to me. I'm not accusing this of being AI. I literally just said there's no way this was AI. But it just looks reminiscent of it. Like, it has the qualities of what I would expect out of an AI generated explosion. I'm not gonna lie. I've seen the art style a lot, and there's a lot of I guess blended and twisted information that is very visually similar to this. Whenever you have digital drawings, sometimes they cut corners and use certain effects that are almost recognizable in AI work. So here I see a lot of smudge on the edges of the smoke stuff that doesn't really look pristine and intentional. It just looks like it was done for the urgency of the project, and that's what gives it that AI feel. If you're an artist, I think you probably know what I mean. Now that doesn't look like AI. That looks completely 2D, done by a professional VFX artist. That's great. Also, I do notice, however, the scenery has completely changed. We didn't see any buildings around, okay? We didn't see any. Like, if I go back here, okay, we had this landscape, right? Very nice. It's blurred out. Finally, they did a little bit of depth here, but you can tell that the game engine itself did not have depth of field. They just slapped a blur filter onto this and did not blur it the further back it goes. Anyway, that's not the point. We're focusing on the fact that there are buildings back here, right? But she's so high up in the air, and he's so tall that we can't see those buildings in these shots. Now, then we go to the actual explosion. Again, too tall to see buildings. She's too far up to see buildings. But suddenly, we're in the middle of them. Suddenly, we're in the middle of the buildings, and there's an entire, like, almost skyscraper of a building right there that we probably should have seen, both behind her and right next to her. There's a bunch of tall buildings nearby. I feel like those should have been included in these shots. Now this is honestly great for the most part. I feel like maybe she should be a little bit smaller in comparison to the robot's face. That's just my opinion. Considering every other shot that we've seen of that robot, it felt way larger. I think they may have increased her size here for visual clarity. I don't think they should have done it. I think they should have kept her small. Very small in comparison to this robot. But this shot is great. It kind of reminds me of that one shot from One Punch Man. I don't even remember what shot I'm talking about, but my brain is telling me One Punch Man had a shot like this in season 1. I don't know. I have no idea. I might be talking out of my ass here. Either way, I think it's a great establishing shot to show the aftermath of the fight, the rubble and stuff. Well done. And this actually has good weight. It has good, like, effects. I don't know. Good voice acting. And then we get this text in German, which I don't know what it says. If anyone here speaks German, let me know. I don't know what that says. There's no captions, there's no translation. And then she kisses the robot. So this is what I was talking about earlier. There had to have been someone in this robot that she cared about. Or the robot itself was what she cared about. I don't know. Either way, that is my analysis of Reburn. We are 51 minutes in. Good lord. Bet you didn't expect that out of a 3-minute animated short that was 6 years ago. But yeah, that's what we do here. That's what we do here. I didn't even expect that. Honestly, I thought this was gonna be like 20 minutes. Not even gonna lie. When I first watched it, I was like, okay, this is probably gonna be like a 20-minute video. But there was a lot to break down and a lot to criticize about it. I would say there was like 3 different moments where I could give it a pretty solid amount of praise, but generally, a lot of this is just critique. Yeah, I don't know. It's not necessarily the worst thing, but it definitely shows how young the studio was and how inexperienced, I guess, the team was when they worked on this. I mean, this was probably a team of people that never really worked on games before. They could have been just a bunch of animation students like fresh out of college or something. Who knows? And again, like, it sucks that college doesn't really, or at least at this time, 6 years ago, I don't think college was really teaching animation for anime 6 years ago. I think it was mostly teaching animation for like Pixar and Disney still, which, you know, very different animation principles. And as far as Japan goes, there wasn't really a whole lot of animation studios dedicated toward Disney back then. So any animation any animation education in Japan and China was likely around anime, and it was likely pretty scarce, I would say, because most people didn't want to go into animation as a profession in those areas. It's not very well paying to go into animation in China or Japan. It becomes well paying once you're an executive, I would say. That's probably when it becomes well paying. But when you're just an animator, it's not gonna be good. It's not gonna be good. So, yeah, that is my breakdown. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Definitely had a lot of things to pick apart about it, and that's kind of one of my favorite things about going into animation, like just dissecting it, is there's always things to notice, and it's not like I can animate something perfectly. That's definitely not, like, I'm not making that claim. I'm not a perfect artist. I'm not a perfect animator. I just know things. I just know how to identify things that are perfect and things that aren't. Okay? That's what has made me a professional artist. That's what gave me the jobs I've had in the past. And that's why we're here. This is the fun part. I love it. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. Take care. Have a good time zone wherever you may be. And I'll see you on the next video, which will hopefully be in less than 3 weeks. Sorry about that. Bye-bye.